Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Chantel, and once again it has been a while. I apologize. It's as expected. A video game took over my life and became my entire personality for over a month, and so I've not really had the gumption or the wherewithal or the time between that and being sick right before the holidays, and then the holidays happening. Videos about what I was reading just were not happening. Were not gonna happen. So, we have a cameo appearance by my cat today. I am going to talk to you about the books that I read mostly in October, because I read a lot in October, and then I really didn't read much at all in November because I was mostly playing Dragon Age the Veilguard, and also haven't read much in December because I have still been playing a lot of Dragon Age the Veilguard, so I don't really have much to say about November and December, but I do have like 15 books to sort of talk about because October was actually a really big reading month for me. So let's get into that. Yeah. So I did finish 13 books in October, which is wild. It's kind of crazy, especially considering the drop-off after October 31st. But yeah, October was actually a really good reading month for me. I read a lot. So I'm just gonna dive into the books really quickly. I'm not gonna take a whole lot of time to talk about them because it's been a while since I've read some of these books, and I honestly couldn't tell you a whole lot about some of them anymore. So we're just gonna, as per usual, kind of go one by one, and I'll see what I can come up with. So the first book that I finished in October was The Last Tale of the Flower Bride by Roshani Chokshi. This was for an Our Fantasy Bingo prompt. I'm pretty sure it was for the prologue and epilogue prompt, but I don't remember exactly. But yeah, so this is a dark fairy tale, sort of story-ish about a man who falls in love with a mysterious woman, and a trip to her childhood home leads this man, the bridegroom, he's an unnamed character called simply the bridegroom, to sort of delve into her mysterious past and learn things that she maybe didn't want him to learn about her. And it gets a little dark from there. It's a very interesting book. I really enjoyed the prose in this book quite a bit. I enjoyed it's a very meta narrative, a very metafiction-y about sort of fairy tales and how fairy tales work, which I appreciate. I like this kind of book. So it worked for me very well. If you're not into like hardcore metafiction stuff and you're not also super like familiar with lots of fairy tale tropes, this might not be for you, but I enjoyed it quite a bit. I thought it was good. I thought it was well written. Again, the prose is quite nice. And yeah, it's one of those things where it works more in terms of, again, as sort of a metafiction than it does as like a super character driven emotional thing. So it's like, it's not like a 5-star read for me. It was like a 4-star read because the characters are not like super well drawn. They're more like ciphers than they are actual characters, but it's still quite good and it's still well written, and I enjoyed my time with it, even if I wasn't as emotionally invested as, I would be in what would be a 5-star read for me, right? 5-star read for me is something that I'm super emotionally invested in. This is not like a super emotional investment for me, but it is really interesting and well written, so I liked it. So that's The Last Tale of Flower Bride. And then after that, I read another sort of creepy ish fairy tale-esque book. I read Starling House by Alex E. Harrow. This is the first Alex E. Harrow book that I've read. I've had like several of her books kind of on my TBR, and so she's been sort of in my sight lines for a while now, but this is the first of her books that I had actually read. And again, I quite liked it. I gave it 4 stars because it maybe wasn't, again, it wasn't like super like, oh, I'm incredibly emotionally invested in this, but it's very well written. I enjoy it. It's very much a creepy sort of Southern Gothic, old housey kind of book. It was October. I was definitely in a I want to read creepy, gothic-y, sort of atmospheric type reads in October. That's kind of my thing. I don't necessarily delve too deeply into straight up horror in as a genre a lot, but I do like creepy, I like atmospheric, I like gothic. So a lot of the books I've read in October are along these lines, and both Last Tale of the Flower Bride and Starling House are kind of along these lines. So I did like Starling House quite a bit. I enjoyed the protagonist. He reminded me a lot of Alex Stern from the Alex Stern novels by Leigh Bardugo, in that she's sort of more of a scrappy working class kind of girl, yeah, poor. She's poor, right? She's not rich. She's not privileged. She has a hard life, genuinely a difficult life. And she's just trying to make do, and she finds herself sort of in over her head in the same way that Alex Stern kind of finds herself in over her head, to some extent, right? And it definitely appeals to me. I like that kind of thing. Scrappy heroine. The love story angle was maybe not quite, I didn't buy it as much, but the atmosphericness of it, the creepy old house-ness of it, the Southern Gothicness of it was definitely working for me, so not bad. After that, I read Paladin's Faith by T. Kingfisher. This is the fourth, and at this point now the most recent in the Saint of Steel series, so I'm now caught up with the Saint of Steel. I enjoyed it a lot. I'm trying to remember. Yeah, I liked it a lot. I gave it 4.5 stars. I think it's T. Kingfisher is like one of my go-to authors where like I know I'm gonna have a good time no matter what. If she wrote it, I'm gonna have a good time with it. I'm gonna like it. I really like The Saint of Steel. I like her take on romance tropes and her take on the fantasy world building of it all. So yeah, I'm into it. T. Kingfisher is always a good time for me. So Paladin's Faith, I give it 4.5 stars. Then I also read A River Enchanted by Rebecca Ross. This is another one of those where I'm pretty sure I read this for another fantasy bingo prompt, but I don't remember which one. Whoops. I just don't remember. Sorry. When I do my fantasy bingo recap, whatever, at the end of March, I'll, obviously talk about these books more again, and then I'll have what prompts they were for. But I know this was for a prompt. I just don't remember which one. But again, this is my first Rebecca Ross. I was not expecting to enjoy this as much as I did. I was expecting it to be like a very kind of YA romantasy, which is something that is very hit or miss for me. But I really liked the characters. I really liked the world building. And I thought the audiobook, the narrator, was it 2 narrators? It might have been 2 narrators for the audiobook. I don't remember. I'm sorry. It was a long time ago already. This is like 2 months ago. But I enjoyed it a lot. I found it very engrossing. I was really into it. So yeah, I gave that 4.5 stars as well. I really liked it. I'm really looking forward to reading the second one in this. I think it's just a duology. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to reading the second one and seeing where it goes, because I really enjoyed A River Enchanted. I thought it was great. It was way better than I had relatively low expectations of this book, and it was way better than I thought it was going to be. So there you go. My next read for October was this wonderful book. This is The Turn of the Screw and Other Ghost Stories by Henry James. I'd never read The Turn of the Screw before, and, it was October, so it was both Victober and also, the spooky season, and so I thought The Turn of the Screw would be a really good fit for both of those things. So I read it, and I read all the other stories in this collection as well, and I enjoyed them quite a bit. I quite like Henry James's prose. I'm definitely gonna be interested in reading some more of his stuff at some point. And yeah, I really enjoyed The Turn of the Screw. I also really liked the very first story in this, I think, was probably my favorite, which was called The Romance of Certain Old Clothes, which is a quite an interesting title for a very fun, classic, creepy kind of ghost story. So yeah, these are really great for October. I enjoyed this collection of stories quite a bit, and yeah, The Turn of the Screw is definitely up there on my list of, you know, sort of favorite ghost stories of all time. And then I listened to a quite short novella called And What Can We Offer You Tonight by Primi Muhammad. Primi Muhammad is another author that has sort of been on my radar, and this sort of popped up on my, I don't remember if I read it in, I think I read it on Hoopla. I listened to it on Hoopla. It sort of popped up in my Hoopla app, and I was like, I kind of want to read this, and it fit for another prompt for another challenge that I'm doing. And so I just listened to it because it was like less than 3 hours long. It was fine. It's like a kind of a murder mystery / dystopian sort of thing. It was kind of mid. It was kind of forgettable. It was fine for like again, it took me less than 3 hours to listen to the whole thing. It was fine. And then I listened to When the Tiger Came Down the Mountain by Nevo. So this is the second book in the Singing Hills cycle, the second novella in the Singing Hills cycle. I am thoroughly enjoying the Singing Hills cycle, and I really, really enjoyed this one in particular. This one in particular deals with a lot of tropes that I really love, particularly with the idea of how sort of cultural memories and can change a story over time, and almost this sense of like the Rashomon effect, where different people who experience the same thing can have very different perspectives on the events that they've witnessed or the events that they've been a part of, and taking that to the next level and saying, well, how is this going to translate into a story that gets told through generations, and how is that going to differ between these two very different cultures, and how it's going to be interpreted differently by different cultures. And I really, really, really enjoyed that a lot. Like, I'm super into the Singing Hills cycle. I'm really looking forward to continuing this in the new year because it's got its hooks in me. I'm really into it. Nevo is also quickly becoming a go-to favorite author of mine alongside T. Kingfisher. So yeah, very into that. And then I read another T. Kingfisher, or listened to. I listened to A House with Good Bones, and this was my first sort of foray into Kingfisher's more horror-y stuff. I've read mostly her like sort of fantasy, dark fairy tale, romance stuff. This is the first time I'd really delved into sort of her more contemporary horror stuff, and I really enjoyed it. Again, T. Kingfisher is just an author that always clicks with me. Her sense of humor, the way that she writes her characters, the way that she describes things, the level of her prose is just right for me. Like, it's just perfect. Like, it's great. I cannot get enough of T. Kingfisher. What more can I say? I gave House of Good Bones like maybe 4 stars, but like, and the themes, like the generational trauma stuff, was wow, really good, and I can see how this one in particular would really hit close to home for some people. Not necessarily for me, but like, I definitely know people who have this kind of generational trauma in their lives, and for whom this book might really hit close to home for them. So yeah, House with Good Bones, it was very good. Again, another perfect sort of horror-y, creepy, spooky, October-y read. Had a great time with it. And then I read Mad Ship by Robin Hobb. I gave this 5 stars. I already talked about this in a previous video, so I'm not gonna say much about it here, except to say that I continue to really, really love all of the Realm of the Elderlings books. The Live Ship Traders trilogy is excellent. yeah, I love Robin Hobb. Robin Hobb is great. A+. I also listened to Fugitive Telemetry, which is the 6th Murderbot Diaries book by Martha Wells. Another great entry in the series. I'm loving Murderbot. Murderbot's been one of the highlights of my year, quite frankly. I think I'm nearly done with it. I might actually be done with it. I might be finished. I don't know. I don't remember. If I have like maybe one more to do, I don't remember. Hold that thought. But Murderbot, great. Again, Martha Wells is one of those writers. Now that I'm getting towards the end of Murderbot, I need to go back and read more of her like fantasy fiction, because I know she's been writing a lot of fantasy fiction. She's been writing for a long time, and I want to go back and read some of her older stuff as well, because I've been really enjoying her writing, and I just want to read more from her that's not Murderbot. So that's definitely going to be like a project of mine in 2025. Then I read the next Discworld novel, which is Weird Sisters. Again, Terry Pratchett, Discworld. Amazing. This is one of my favorite early Discworld novels, in large part because, I mean, it's the Shakespeare one, and I'm a big Shakespeare girly. I just am. It's, you know, it's witches, it's Granny Weatherwax, which is always a good time, and it's especially it's a Shakespeare send up in a lot of ways, and it's super super fun. It's one of those books that like you get way more out of it if you're very familiar with Shakespeare, which I am. It's very funny. It's one of my favorite early Discworld novels. Had a great time. This is technically a reread, but yeah, I had so much fun reading this one. So yeah, that's Weird Sisters. And then I also read The Blade Itself, which of course is the First Law trilogy, the first book in the First Law trilogy by Joe Abercrombie. This is my first Joe Abercrombie book. I made a video about this where I talk about it more in depth, so I'm gonna just let you go and watch that if you haven't, and I'll mostly leave it at that. Again, it was a solid, like, not quite 4 stars. Pretty good. I'm into it. I'm going to keep reading. It was maybe not my favorite thing ever. Wasn't quite living up to the hype that Joe Abercrombie seems to get, but I did, like, enjoy it, and, like, I get why people like Lockta. Like, I get it. And then to continue or round out my October creepy gothic reads, I did read Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. I loved this book. This was fantastic. When I first mentioned to my best friend that I was planning to read Rebecca this year, they said to me, "I can't believe you haven't read this book yet." And I see why now. Now that I have read it, I can see why they said that, because yeah, this is very much my shit. This is very my shit. Is heavily character driven, very creepy, super limited POV, which is excellent. I love the limited POV stuff. I love only knowing the information that like one particular character knows at any given point, and not having the full picture until maybe later on. That's really good. Yeah, and just how everything comes together in this book is just, wow. I have to read more Daphne du Maurier for sure. Definitely, like, this is a thing that I'm gonna have to do. So that's the books that I read in October. And then we get to November, after 13 books in October, and then Dragon Age: The Veilguard came out on Halloween, and in November I finished 2 books. I finished 2 books in all of November after reading 13 in October. And yeah, that was mostly just because my brain was consumed with Dragon Age. I absolutely could not focus on an audiobook during the month of November. Like, I have not been able to focus on an audiobook. I tried 1 or 2, and I was not able to get through them. And it was purely just because my brain has been full of Dragon Age, and I just cannot focus on an audiobook. I just can't. So yeah, I only finished 2 books in November. The first one that I finished is another sort of Halloween holdover. So this is Dark Tales by Shirley Jackson's collection of short stories. All very creepy and very horror-y. I loved them. They're very good. Shirley Jackson is a really great writer. She's very, very good at making the ordinary into something that is horrific and frightening. Man, there's a bunch of stories in here. Some of them are quite short. All of them are quite good. The Good Wife was really good. The Beautiful Stranger is really, really good. Paranoia was excellent. These are all just really, really good reads. I think I really like horror best when it's in a shorter format. I think, for me at least, it tends to be more effective when it doesn't overstay its welcome and it doesn't sit with you and try to over-explain itself. Because for me, the scariest things are the things that you just don't know, right? The things that are just not going to explain themselves to you are the things that are scariest. The minute that something is explained to me, it's no longer frightening to me. So I find, if I'm going to actually read a horror, something that's in the horror genre, it needs to be pretty short. It doesn't necessarily have to be as short as this. I'll read like a novella, a horror novella, but if it's much longer than like 100, 150 pages, I'm probably gonna feel like it's starting to overstay its welcome. But yeah, these stories, they really punch hard. They're really quick. They leave you wondering what the hell just happened, and that for me is like the best horror. So yeah, these are really great. Shirley Jackson's a great writer. You should give her a shot if you haven't, and if you like horror stories at all, if you like creepy things at all, Shirley Jackson is definitely someone you should try out. And then the other book that I finished in November was Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. So I've been meaning to read this all year. It's another sort of classic dystopian novel. I've been sort of into classic dystopian novels this year a bit. And this one was weird. I kind of understand what he was getting at with this one. It was definitely well written and effective. I'm not sure if it works for me completely, though. I only gave it 3.5 stars on Storygraph because I'm just not sure what I think of it, if I'm perfectly honest, apart from just, it's very well written and I could kind of tell what he was getting at, but I'm not sure it is super effective for me personally. But I'm glad I read it. I don't like it nearly as much as I liked Fahrenheit 451, which I read earlier this year. It's the other sort of big major classic dystopian that I read this year. But again, I'm glad I read it. Yeah, I'm not sure that I have much else to say about Brave New World. And that's it. I haven't finished any books in December yet, and I probably won't, because the book I'm reading is Ship of Destiny, and it's over 800 pages long. I'm like 65% of the way through almost. So I'm getting there, but I don't know if I'll have it finished by December 31st. Probably not at the rate I'm going. But it is very good. I'm loving it. Again, Robin Hobb is really doing it for me. I've just been really taking my time with this one, and honestly, I'm okay with that. It doesn't bother me. I've read a lot this year, and I'm okay with ending the year on a slightly slower paced note. And in fact, and I'm going to make a video about my goals and ideas for my reading in 2025, and some of what I'm going to say in that video is going to involve maybe trying to slow down a little bit, especially when I'm reading through these bigger books that are like 500 pages or more, and just being willing and able to just kind of, let myself slow down a little bit and enjoy them and sit with them for a little bit longer. And that's what I've been doing with Ship of Destiny this month. And frankly, it's been working out really well for me. I'm enjoying it quite a bit. I'm really, again, I'm thoroughly enjoying this. This one's easily going to be another 5-star from me. Robin Hobb is just hitting them out of the park for me pretty consistently. And I can't wait to continue in 2025 reading, I think the next trilogy in this series is going to be the Tawny Man trilogy, which, excellent. I can't wait. So, like, the fact that I'm reading it slowly is not, like, a commentary on the quality of the book. In fact, quite the opposite. It's one of those things where it's like, I wanna sit in this world with these characters longer, so I'm just taking my time with it, and that's fine. So, yeah, I've been continuing to read every single day. I haven't taken a break from reading. I've read every single day. I just have slowed down. I haven't been reading as much, and that's really okay. I'm really okay with that, actually. So yeah, that's probably gonna be my last sort of monthly-ish wrap-up for the year. My next sort of wrap-up video will probably be like a top 10 or top 12 books of 2024, and I'll do that in January sometime because I wanna, you know, make I think the year should be over when I go to review it. I think the year should be over when I go to review it. So I'll do that sometime in January. But yeah, so that's the last books that I've read over the past two and a half months, while I was also obsessed with Dragon Age. Yeah. So yeah, hopefully all of y'all have had a great sort of end of fall and into the holiday season. I've also had a great one. And next week I'm over New Year's, I'm taking a little trip with my family to just sort of enjoy some time together over New Year's, out of town. It's going to be good. So yeah, hope everybody else has had a great holiday season, and that you've been reading some great books. Let me know in the comments below if you read any of the books that I talked about and what you thought of them. Have you read any really great books the last couple of months? If so, I want to know. And yeah, we'll see you in the next video. Bye.